Hi, this is Jennifer Wolf. I'm currently serving as the vice principal at Connor High School in Boone County Schools. And the name of my data team is the Curriculum Committee. The purpose of this data team is to not only collect data to improve instruction throughout the school, but also to improve our assessment scores. In the fall of 2023, we learned that Connor High School was labeled TSI in the area of special education. And we also noticed that our scores in science, social studies, and on demand writing were not quite where we wanted them to be. So that has been where we have placed most of our focus throughout this school year. This visual shows who makes up the curriculum committee. As the vice principal, I am serving as the chairperson of this committee. The other two people that assist me in the leadership on this committee are Jody Petersheim, who is the instructional coach at Connor High School, and the principal, Andy Wyckoff. The members that help make the decisions on this data team include our team leaders. Most of these team members are the head of their departments in our core content areas and also in our elective courses. The curriculum committee typically meets once a month. It usually takes place the week before our site-based decision-making meeting, so that if there's any important information that needs to be presented at site-based, I can go to those meetings to do that. If there are any extra meetings that need to take place, we just add those and make sure that all members are present to discuss any important information. This first visual is a comparison of the school's KSA performances. We have a list of our Connor elementary schools, North Point, Kelly, Goodridge, and Thornwild, all which are very high performing schools with their KSA scores. After that, we looked at our two middle schools that will also feed into Connor High School. Camp Ernst makes up about 15 to 20% of the students that will eventually attend Connor High School, and Connor Middle School makes up about 80% of the students that will attend Connor High School. So Connor Middle School is currently the highest achieving school in Northern Kentucky. They have the highest test scores, and they also compare very well to other schools in the state. So we're looking at different strategies that those schools are using instructionally and through their assessments, and trying to look at those this school year to see what we can implement. The next visual shows a little bit of the four high schools that make up Boone County: Ryle High School, Connor High School, Cooper High School, and Boone County High School. Ryle and Cooper are both on a traditional school day where they have 6 class periods and a half-hour advisory period where they can implement remediation. Connor and Boone County High School are both on block scheduling. So students take 4 classes in the fall and 4 classes in the spring. You'll see from looking at this KSA overall performance chart that Ryle High School typically is ranking very high in those different tested areas, and Connor is coming in at a close second there. So the committee decided to focus on science, social studies, and on-demand writing scores for school improvement for this school year. The science data shows that Connor High School is at a 35.6 index for all students, which is somewhat on the low side. Science scores across the state have been relatively low. In the social studies area, Connor is at a 57.4, and then for the combined writing index for all students at Connor High School, they're at 62.1%. So Connor does rank second in the districts among the Boone County schools, but we're still looking to improve those scores and have really tried to implement a number of different initiatives this school year to do that. This particular graphic was something that we looked at not only as a data team, but we also looked at this in a faculty meeting back in November. So we noticed from this particular graphic that about 57% of our student body is not at the proficient level in on-demand writing. We currently only have around 43% of our students that are proficient. So we talked about implementing writing in all classes. And so our instructional coach has worked with all of our teachers that teach electives, that teach other core content classes, so that we are incorporating different writing pieces within each unit of study. So we decided to focus on what we call CER, claim evidence reasoning. So we have students make a claim and they have to come up with some type of argument that they're going to write about, and they have to have supporting evidence, and they have to present reasons as to why their argument that they have constructed is going to be proven. And so that has been something that we're working on in all of our classes. We started to put different posters with that acronym of CER in our classes so that it is a consistent message throughout the school, and we see an improvement in this area. These are a few of the different literary sources that I used to implement here at Connor High School this year. The first one, which I just think is a really important piece that all teachers should look at, is the Focus Book by Mike Schmoker. For students to grow as readers, we want to be implementing reading into daily class because we want to build up that knowledge base and that vocabulary so that students can not only read well, but read across the curriculum. So having students not only look at novels in English class, but to look at documents and to look at relevant articles and different charts and graphs so they can further enhance their reading skills. So I love the Schmoker book just because it really presents a kind of back to the basics that sometimes is lacking, and definitely we may not have really did not really have in place too much during COVID. From there, we have the Results Now, which is another Mike Schmoker piece. And I love this book just because it talks about a lot of things dealing with literacy. But I think one of the most powerful parts of this book is where they talked about how adults entering the world in the 21st century are going to read and write more than any time in history. And so we need a lot of different advanced levels of literacy to help students so that they can be prepared not only in their professional life, but also in their personal lives. And so it's another just great read for teachers, and so they can incorporate this into their daily classes. The Subjects Matter book about Every Teacher's Guide to Content Area of Reading. Again, another great piece just because it talks a lot about real world reading and writing opportunities and trying to engage students in reading as much as possible. So another great read that gives a lot of practical ideas. The next one is probably my favorite of all of these books, and we really have tried to implement a lot of the ideas from Small Changes, Big Impact here at Connor High School this year. I first came across this book when I attended a conference at Stevenson High School in Illinois that really dramatically changed my career as a teacher. I love some of the ideas in this book because they just talk about teaching students to read and write at a high level. And we want to do that through real world experiences as much as we can. So even though this can be difficult and we need a lot of different examples for this to occur, we really want to build students to be self-reliant learners. So we're putting the learning into the hands of the kids, and we're really facilitating it more. We're giving them opportunities so that they can reflect on their learning. So again, probably my favorite book that I have implemented over the last 3 to 4 years. The last two books are also from Stevenson, and I think that they are also super important in terms of making changes not only in instruction but also in assessment, which is really key. So the first one, Proficiency-Based Assessment, I love this book because it provides a lot of clarity with not only strong assessment writing, but providing rubrics and expectations for kids so they know exactly what we want them to know. It also talks a lot about providing success criteria so students They know kind of where they should be by the time they get to that summative assessment. It shouldn't be guesswork as to where they're going to score. I also loved this book because they talk a lot about the reflection piece where students are reflecting on their work. It's that metacognitive piece that I think just takes learning to a whole level. And again, this goes back to building those self-reliant learners that are going to be able to not need a teacher to just hold their hand that whole time. The last one there, proficiency-based grading in the content areas. I love this one because we really kind of put this out there for our PLCs, but having weekly discussions in our PLC meetings is really bringing about a new mindset for our teachers. It also is allowing us to collect data so that when teachers are implementing these new reading and writing strategies, we're seeing how that's helping students. So it's another really good piece to this whole puzzle as we're making some of these changes. So, what exactly is our goal? So, we want students to be successful. We want to show that they are having success in class. And we're monitoring this through our data tracking system. So, at the end of a unit, once students have completed the common summative assessment, we have the teachers fill out a data collection sheet so we can not only just look at like how the students did, how many kids got A's, B's, and C's, but also that next piece of the remediation. What does the remediation look like for students so that we know that whatever they struggled on, we can make sure that they've learned that. And the whole goal in this is so that we see a trend upward on our on-demand writing scores, our science, and our social studies scores. So that's kind of the goal behind all of this. This is another visual just showing some of our performance levels in science and social studies. So as you can see, we really want to move some of those kids from the novice and the apprentice up to being proficient because we don't have enough students at the proficient and the distinguished level in science or social studies. So that's kind of where this plan came from. We noticed that there were, some struggles there in our scores of the last two school years. We also fully realized that COVID probably played a part in some of these scores, but we don't want to use that as an excuse. So we're working toward improvement for kids throughout the school. So these are some of the goals that we decided to focus on. So each week we want students reading a variety of texts in class. So teachers are using all different types of reading selections across the curriculum. We also, secondly, there want kids to be comparing multiple sources in class so that when they get to the KSA test in May, they understand that they have to compare maybe 2 or 3 different sources to be able to answer the questions or to write a short answer question or to write an extended response. So that's the goal with that second one there. Moving on, students will participate in various writing to learn activities. So that's where we really have been pushing not only CER, but just other writing to learn activities, just trying to get our kids reading and writing as much as possible. And then lastly, the remediation piece, teachers having to identify specific interventions, not only for our special education students, but also for any kids that might be struggling. This next visual is a sample of our Connor High School PLC agenda. So each week, teachers on first and second with common planning, we meet in a large gathering place. And then on Thursdays, I meet with our third and fourth period planning teachers. And teachers can access this agenda 2 ways. They can either access it through the calendar invite, or they can go directly to the shared Google Drive so that they know what is on the agenda for the week. So this is an agenda from very early in January, the start of the second semester. In each agenda, we always have the norms that we refresh. And then usually I lead the meeting with different types of general updates. So as you can see, this one was in January. So we just talked about updating subplans, making sure we're all consistent with our e-hall pass procedures, what our remediation looks like. We also talked about how we want our formative assessments to kind of look like a practice or a scrimmage, and it should be modeling what is going to be on their summative, which is kind of the game piece of it. So we just talked about the terminology of some of that. We also talked about student engagement. Usually after that general update period, then our teachers are going to meet in their team. So if they're members of the Algebra 2 team, they're at a table together. If there are members of our English 1 team, those teachers are working together. The instructional coach typically meets with any elective teachers since they may not be paired up with someone that they have common planning with. And that's where the work really takes place. They revisit pacing, they talk about the data from their common assessments, they share what instructional strategies are working best. Because one of our key points for the year was really to work on the student engagement piece. And then usually we end up talking about what the topic is going to be for next week. So for this one, the next week we talked about the topic being small changes, big impact, and implementing what we call a diamond lesson plan. The next one is a sample data collection form. So on this particular Google form, we were just asking teachers what they were doing for remediating so that we could take a look at how that was looking throughout the school and then what their first expected common assessment was going to take place. And then they also had a link for the analysis sheet if they were given their common assessment before other groups. The next example is a PLC reflection form. So on this particular Google form, we were asking teachers how they were incorporating reading and writing into their course daily. And we also wanted to know, because it had been a few weeks after the first meeting of the semester, if they had implemented the Diamond lesson plan. And then if they hadn't, we were able to kind of follow up with them to see what assistance or supports they might need to be able to put that action in place. And then lastly, this is just a picture of our PLCs in progress. Typically, we have anywhere from 3 to 5 different groups meeting in some of our larger gathering places. One of my goals for the future is to try to take a team of teachers to Stevenson High School in Illinois, which puts a lot of these practices in place for PLCs so that we can be as effective and efficient as possible so that we can do what is best for our students on a daily basis so that we can see high-level student success. I hope you enjoyed listening to the plans from our curriculum committee and some of the different initiatives that we have put in place this school year. Thank you.